Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Mega Mawile. So whenever I say Mawile, I mean Mega Mawile. And Mawile is an insane Pokemon because of its ability. Its ability is huge power, which means that its attack stat is doubled, while also having a base attack stat of 105. Now, after EV investment and all that gets doubled, it gives you a rough base attack of 240 because your ending stat is almost 680 at level 100 with an adamant full invested attack, which is insane. Now also, like, originally Mawile doesn't have the greatest stats, so when you go and boost that with the attack and then you give it some defenses while just going to town on like that defense and special defense, now you have a Pokemon that's really hard to kill with a huge amount of attack and then the huge power ability really throwing it over the edge. If it was just a 105 base attack Pokemon, there isn't really much to say about that, but because it gets huge power, because it gets all those effective stats, it becomes an absurd Mega. Look at its typing, it's a Steel Fairy type. In my top 5 best and worst typings, I put Steel Fairy as the best typing in the game, mostly because of just how durable it is. It's going to be really hard to hit Mawile neutral or super, and it does have a lot of good immunity, so you can make a lot of work from it. That you really don't have to worry about ground and fire. And other than that, with those high defenses, neutral hits don't threaten you, and you have so many resists, you're going to be on the field for quite some time. So hopping into Pokemon Showdown, also remember, this Pokemon is completely legal to use for your competitive aspects, so don't be worried about not bringing it. It's a very good, strong Pokemon, so we'll talk about it right now. Because this Pokemon runs an insane amount of sets, that the variety that Mawile has makes it fairly unpredictable and a very strong Pokemon. It can either be running setup, it can either be running straight up power, it can do all sorts of things, and pretty much it's just going to be incredibly strong. That Iron Head and Play Rough are going to get stabbed on top of having that monstrous attack stat, so neutral hits have a very high chance of KOing because of that. You also have the opportunity for Sucker Punch, and depending on what you're playing, you can kind of play it out like that. If you're running in doubles, Protect is what you want. If you're running in singles, Swords Dance or some kind of other coverage move is what you'd be looking for, and the idea is Mawile is going to want to just set up Swords Dance. That if you don't see a super effective hit coming your way, use Swords Dance, and then that means you can just hide behind Sucker Punch, and your opponent will pretty much go away at some point. That with 1 or 2 Swords Dance, you have a lot of one-hit KO potential, and your opponent has to attack you sometime. The really strong thing about the Steel typing is that you can't get Toxic, so it's really hard to stall out Mawile, and really your only bet against hurting Mawile too much is to go with a Will-O-Wisp or some kind of burn. And even then, it's still going to have a decent amount of damage even after being burned, or it can Swords Dance through it pretty well. So Sucker Punch, Iron Head, Play Rough is going to be your standard set with Swords Dance or Substitute or some kind of place to run it around like that. Now, in singles, it's just going to be standard setup and go and try to destroy your opponent. But in doubles, a lot of people like putting it next to a Trick Room Pokemon. They can go with Aromatisse, Slowbro, Carbink, any one of the reliable Trick Room setup Pokemon. You go with a Brave Nature instead of Adamant, like I have the Adamant set up here. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of make a note. You want to go Brave Nature on the doubles setup, and with this you can pretty much go with like max attack, high hit points, and then you just hide behind that speed priority. You want to go with Protect on that first turn, and then all that gets set up. This shouldn't be Iron Defense, this should be Iron Head. Pokemon Showdown messing me up. And then the idea is now you're going to have speed priority because with the Trick Room, you're going to be one of the faster things on the field, and then you can just go and pretty much eliminate one target while Slowbro is setting up Calm Mind, throwing out Heal Pulse, doing all sorts of crazy things that it can use to support. That since you can't have the Mega Slowbro and the Mega Mawile, you can just kind of look at it as a kind of tricky kind of Pokemon. It can throw out Scald support. Slowbro is a really good Pokemon to have with Mega Mawile. Now, if we look at some other Mawile sets, in singles or doubles, you can run a lot more bulk on your Mawile. That since it has a naturally high defense, you can invest in the special defense and the hit points and become just a frustratingly hard Pokemon to knock out. You go for that Swords Dance, and then you Sucker Punch, Play Rough, and any kind of other coverage move. That if we look over here, interestingly enough, Steel is fairly decent against Mawile. It's not incredibly strong, but still does some pretty good work by resisting Iron Head and Play Rough, as well as not giving too many opportunities for Sucker Punch. So carrying Fire Fang lets you break down those Pokemon. Like, the Mawile Aegislash matchup is really awkward sometimes, but generally it goes in Aegislash's favor. So carrying Fire Fang will give you the advantage against Aegislash, because Aegislash unless you go for speed investment on Mawile, is going to be a faster Pokemon. So if it uses Shadow Sneak, it's going to outspeed, it's going to disrupt your Sucker Punch, and then any of your other moves it can King Shield. So carrying Fire Fang and going for that outplay works out pretty well against Aegislash, as well as just other Steel-type Pokemon. That you ruin Ferrothorn's day, that you do a lot of serious damage to Scizor and Pokemon like that. So Fire Fang is some tech that you might see on Mawile every once in a while, because it is a really solid move for the Pokemon to carry. So it's going to be like Swords Dance, Sucker Punch, Play Rough, and then Fire Punch, or Fire Fang sometimes, and that's how that works. Also, some people like having that substitute, that if your opponent's setting up and you get a free substitute, game's over. That's a free Swords Dance behind sub. If they can't really get around your sub or they have to switch, that's when you get your free substitute or your free Swords Dance, and then it's going to take extra strength to try to knock you out, and by then you're just going to be throwing Play Roughs for the KO, or you can hide behind Sucker Punch and just kind of out prioritize and win from there. So I just kind of also wanted to show regular Mawile. The base stat improvement is insane, that 85 on the attack and then 85 on defense, 55 special defense. It just gets monstrous boosts across the board, that it gets 40 in both defenses, and then the little boost to the attack is really all it needs because of the huge power. So it just kind of shows like the extra changes. Also, it kind of brings up the ability idea that a lot of Mawile, they run Intimidate. So Mega Mawile is really strong because you bring it in, you lower your opponent's attack so they might have to switch, or they'll have even less offensive options against you when you Mega Evolve, and then you can just be terrifying from there. Also, it can get Hyper Cutter, prevents the attack stat from being lowered, which means now you can't be intimidated, and then you Mega Evolve and now you're at full strength. So Hyper Cutter is the less chosen option, but it still is something interesting to note. Intimidate still fairly strong. And other than that, you're pretty much just going to see like Adamant Mawiles running more bulk than trying to go with the speed or going for that Trick Room. And that's kind of why this Pokemon's really insane to talk about. So that's the thing about Mawile. You never know really what it's going to have. And by then, you know, you can maybe just think, oh, it might be Swords Dancing, and then it goes for an outright attack and gets a huge amount of damage or KOs you. It might be able to sneak in a substitute around you, or it can just do all sorts of crazy things. So it is a very strong and terrifying Pokemon, and unless you have Ground or Fire, or a way of burning it and maybe even paralyzing it, or trying to reduce some of its strength, it can go through entire teams pretty well. So if you guys enjoyed the video, that's how you use Mega Mawile.